Καλησπέρα σε όλους και από μένα. Είμαι η Μαρία Σαράφογλου και θέλω και εγώ με τη σειρά μου να σας καλωσορίσω στο Athens Energy Summit, εδώ στο Ζάπιο Μέγαρο. Θα συνεχίσουμε τη συζήτησή μας στα αγγλικά με τους εκλεκτούς ομιλητές μας. So allow me to speak in English. The energy crisis after the war in Ukraine, especially after the Ukraine war, has raised serious security concerns on an energy level, and that is exactly what we're going to discuss in the next 40 minutes. The energy security, the intergovernmental agreements, the international projects, and the geopolitical equilibrium, especially in the Eastern Mediterranean. So I want to welcome Mr. Noam Katz, Ambassador of Israel to the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Valentin Poriazov, Ambassador of Bulgaria to the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Yannis Maniatis, Professor in the University of Piraeus and former Minister of Environment, Energy and Climate Change, and Mr. Michalis Mathioulakis, he's an academic director on the Greek Energy Forum. So, Ambassador Katz, I want to start with you. It takes a long time, as we all know, for energy agreements to make progress and for the projects to be built. So, following an energy crisis, is there a will today to speed up the decision-making process? And in your opinion, which are Israel's priorities? I mean, which are the energy projects that are urgent, in your opinion, and need to be accelerated in the immediate future?
Well, I would like to start with a cliché. And the cliché is that energy is vital for the existence of our societies and of our cultures. And in the past, countries were independent energetically, and I'm speaking about the far past. And later on, when we entered the era of fossil energy, we came into a world that demands collaboration, but also a world of competition. And now we are on the verge of a new era where we will have to transform our energy resources, our energy uses, and therefore we will need to go into much more collaboration. When we think about our own neighborhood, the Eastern Mediterranean, we entered into the market of fossil energy relatively lately, in the 90s. But we came to the conclusion that that is something that is going to change the life of Israelis and the life of people that are residing in countries in the region. And therefore, we came to the idea that we need to collaborate. And the world as we see today in the region and beyond the region is a world of neighborhood with a lot of collaboration among them and with corridors that runs between those countries and to neighboring neighborhoods. This idea was accelerated because of the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine created a crisis, an energy crisis in Europe, and therefore we have to speed up all our plans.
Which plans must go forward?
Another reason to speed up our plans is that the world is in a transition period, and we know that we have to use the resources now, and we want a new cocktail of resources of energy in 2050. And therefore, we came in the past with the idea of a pipeline, the EastMed pipeline, but I think that the EastMed is more than a project. The EastMed is a concept, is a promise, is a commitment of governments to collaborate. It's a commitment for collaboration. And therefore, we are thinking today on the best way to speed it. So we think a lot today about LNG. We think of exhausting the capabilities that we have already in the region. When Israel found gas in its economic zone, we started to develop it first to be independent when it comes to energy. Then we built infrastructure that will connect us to our immediate neighbors, which are mainly Jordan and Egypt. And Egypt today is the only point in our region that can export that gas into Europe because they are the only country with LNG facilities. So we accelerated we accelerated much of our export via Jordan to Egypt and directly to Egypt. Egypt can then export to Europe. And we are thinking about new facilities that are much quicker than EastMed. The EastMed is still on the table, but its future will be decided and dictated by commercial forces, by the business community, that will have to see it as something that is viable, that can be built in time and generate revenues.
And how do you see Turkey's role in that project?
Again?
How do you see Turkey's role in that project?
Well, I think that when we live in the region, we need to seek as much as collaboration as possible with all the countries in this region, because this kind of collaboration are increasing stability versus forces that are radical, that are increasing instability. So I think that if Turkey would like to take part, would like to play by the rules of the members in the neighborhood, then definitely they can join future ways of collaboration. I don't think that the collaboration with Turkey is coming on the expense of the bilateral relation or regional relation that Israel has with other countries in the region. I can assure you for sure that, for example, the strong relation that Israel forged with Greece, or with Cyprus, or with the trilateral, are not going to be harmed or affected by any kind of rapprochement that we will achieve bilaterally with Turkey. But certainly, if Turkey can be a player, and it's even something that is wanted, I think, by the countries in the region.
Based on the international law, as you said. I'm coming to you, Ambassador Poriazov. In what way is Bulgaria planning to tackle the energy crisis? And which projects do you believe could offer maximum energy security and independence?
When we speak about energy security, we should think about several sectors. Natural gas security, oil security, electric energy. What happened with us in April last year was a case study about the influence of the war of Mr. Putin and his aggression against Ukraine for the energy security of a certain country. Actually, we were the country member of the European Union, which was very much dependent on Russian energy. So in 24 hours, when Mr. Putin has stopped the gas supply to Bulgaria, we turned from around 90% dependency on Russian natural gas to zero. So if I can paraphrase a song by Frank Sinatra, if we could do it, everybody could do it. Get independent from Russian energy supplies. Actually, what we did and what happened was very much due to the European solidarity. There was a regulation of the European Commission providing for all the neighbors to help their neighbors in the framework of the European Union. So we turned to Greece, and we have had an extensive collaboration with the government, and here I would like to mention the role of former Minister Skrekas. So we managed actually to become independent from Russian natural gas in 24 hours, using the LNG facilities of Greece and some other instruments that we had at our disposal, being EU members.
But how do you maintain this energy independence?
So, at that time, the famous interconnector between Greece and Bulgaria was not finalized. It provides us with 1 billion cubic meters from Azerbaijan. We have a 25 years contract. So we managed very quickly the previous governments of Greece and Bulgaria to finalize this project, so it was opened on the 1st of October last year. We have around 4 billion consumption of natural gas. We have already, through the interconnector with Greece, 1 billion. We are importing from the only facility that you have in Greece, in Revitusa, a certain part of our consumption. We are importing through LNG terminals also in Turkey, because as you can calculate, we cannot reach the 4 billion with the capacity in Revitusa. We signed an agreement and we are participating in the LNG terminal in Alexandroupolis. You know, this is a gas trade project, and our state transmission company is participating with the share in the shared capital with 20%. So this LNG terminal is going to be ready and functional by the end of this year. We have reserved 1 billion cubic meters capacity in these LNG terminals. Most probably, we are going to participate in a second LNG terminal, again in Alexandroupolis, which is going to be constructed by the same company in which we participate with 20%. Before the opening of the LNG interconnector between Komotini and Stara Zagora, we have imported Azeri gas from the existing line that we have from Sidiroka Strois on the Greek territory and Kulata. This is the famous railway that we have. We have another interconnection there with.
But Ambassador, do you believe that the agreements with Greece can ensure energy efficiency to Bulgaria? They are capable?
All the agreements that we have signed, Bulgaria and Greece, and the future agreements are future-oriented in the framework of the single market. They can solve many problems. We have the preference of working among EU member states because, as I mentioned already, the single market. So we believe that the two terminals in Alexandroupolis, the Revitusa, and we have signed, just to go to the title of our panel, we have signed 2 more agreements. The first one is providing for Greek energy companies to reserve capacity in our gas storage facility at Chiren, which is going to be doubled very soon. It will have the capacity of 1 billion cubic meters. So your companies, because you don't have still storage facilities in Greece, they're going to use the Bulgarian storage facility. At the same time, the same agreement provides for our companies to have to reserve slots at Revitusa. This is mutually complementary, mutually beneficial, so it is obvious that only by cooperating together in the framework of the European energy market, we can provide future benefits and prosperity for our nations. Another, and this is my last point, is for an agreement we have signed in February with the previous government, and is going to be realized after the elections in Bulgaria and Greece. It's to study the possibilities for the construction of the famous Burgas-Alexandroupolis oil pipeline, but in the other direction, because obviously now we have a derogation, EU derogation, to use still Russian oil, but in 1.5 years it is not going to be possible. This is to our preference that we use sources from other countries, not Russian oil, because we cannot forecast when the war is going to stop, and we cannot forecast from this moment, I'm afraid, what the future of the energy relations between the EU and Russia is going to be. So we want to provide us with this facility, starting from Alexandroupolis to our refinery in Burgas, which is the biggest in the region, and we can have a bilateral cooperation also on the products that are going to be produced by this refinery. Thank you.
Κύριε Maniati, έρχομαι σε εσάς. Ακούσαμε νωρίτερα και από τον Ισραηλινό πρέσβη ότι ο αγωγός East Med είναι ένα project γενικότερα. Οπότε θέλω να ρωτήσω σε ποιο στάδιο βρίσκεται αυτή τη στιγμή το σχέδιο, αν έχει εγκαταλειφθεί πλήρως, αν μπορεί να αναβιώσει στην παρούσα συγκυρία και υπό ποιες συνθήκες.
Κύριε Σαράφογλου, πριν απαντήσω στην ερώτησή σας, να κάνω μια μικρή γέφυρα με το προηγούμενο πάνελ. Κυρίες και κύριοι, η Ελλάδα εδώ και μια δεκαετία, από το 2013, είναι μια χώρα πρωταγωνίστρια στις ανανεώσιμες πηγές ενέργειας. Το 2013 η Ελλάδα ήταν η τρίτη καλύτερη χώρα στον κόσμο στην κατακεφαλήν παραγωγή φωτοβολταϊκής ενέργειας και είχε και μία από τις καλύτερες θέσεις στα αιωλικά. Άρα εδώ και μια δεκαετία η χώρα μας ακολουθεί μια σταθερή φιλοπεριβαλλοντική πράσινη ενεργειακή στρατηγική και σήμερα μπορούμε πραγματικά να λέμε ότι είμαστε από τις πρωτοπόρες χώρες σε παγκόσμιο επίπεδο. Δεύτερη παρατήρηση. Συζητούμε και, Your Excellencies, thank you very much for your comments. I just want to say a few things about your previous speech. Συζητάμε για τον αγωγό TAP, τον αγωγό EastMed, τον ελληνοβουλγαρικό, τον αγωγό EastMed, το FSRU της Αλεξανδρούπολης, την αντιλησιοταμίευση της Αμφιλοχίας και μια σειρά άλλων έργων. Θέλω να θυμίσω ότι αυτά τα έργα σχεδιάστηκαν και εντάχθηκαν για χρηματοδότηση στα ευρωπαϊκά προγράμματα το 2013. Σήμερα λοιπόν μιλούμε για έργα, μερικά από τα οποία έχουν τελειώσει, όπως ο αγωγός TAP και ο αγωγός IGB, τελειώνουν, όπως το FSRU της Αλεξανδρούπολης, ή βρίσκονται σε στάδιο πλήρους ορίμανσης, όπως ο αγωγός EastMed και η αντιλησιοταμίευση στην Αμφιλοχία.
Απλώς, κύριε Maniati, να μπούμε λίγο και στην ουσία, επειδή μας πιέζει και ο χρόνος.
Ναι. Έρχομαι τώρα. Η πρόκληση λοιπόν είναι τι κάνουμε από εδώ και πέρα για την επόμενη δεκαετία. EastMed. Τα έχω ακούσει όλα τα τελευταία 10 χρόνια. Το 2011 ξεκινήσαμε να τον σχεδιάζουμε με την κυβέρνηση του Ισραήλ και την κυβέρνηση της Κύπρου. Το έχω ακούσει όλα. Θα πω μόνο 3 συνοπτικά θέματα. Πρώτον, ο EastMed εντάχθηκε στα χρηματοδοτούμενα ευρωπαϊκά προγράμματα το 2013 και έχει πάρει μέχρι τώρα πάνω από 30 εκατομμύρια ευρωπαϊκή χρηματοδότηση. Στην 6η λίστα των προγραμμάτων χρηματοδότησης που θα δημοσιευθεί το Σεπτέμβριο αυτού του έτους, ο EastMed θα συνεχίσει να είναι, μετά από γράμματα υποστήριξης που απέστειλε στην Κομισιόν, η ελληνική κυβέρνηση, η Ισραηλινή κυβέρνηση, η κυπριακή κυβέρνηση και για πρώτη φορά και η Ιταλική κυβέρνηση. Δεύτερη παρατήρηση. Το 2013, σύμφωνα με το σχεδιασμό του αγωγού, θα γίνει το περίφημο market test, που είναι αυτό που λέμε ότι αποφασίζουν οι αγορές. Το 2023, λοιπόν, μετά από μια πλήρη ωριμότητα που έχει το έργο, περιβαλλοντικά, τεχνικά κλπ., θα είναι το κρίσιμο σημείο αυτή τη χρονιά. Και τρίτη και τελευταία, ίσως η σημαντικότερη παρατήρηση. Κάνουμε μια κουβέντα για τον μοναδικό σε πανευρωπαϊκό επίπεδο αγωγό που ξεκινά από μια νέα πηγή, την Ανατολική Μεσόγειο, έχει μια νέα όδευση, ο μοναδικός που θα μεταφέρει και πράσινο υδρογόνο στην προοπτική του πράσινου υδρογόνου, με συνέργειες με ανανεώσιμα και ο οποίος αγωγός έχει ένα κόστος 6 δισεκατομμύρια ευρώ, θα δουλέψει για 50 χρόνια, όταν η Ευρώπη για την ενεργειακή κρίση μέσα σε ένα έτος πέταξε στον αέρα 600 δισεκατομμύρια ευρώ για να στηρίξει τα νοικοκυριά και τις επιχειρήσεις. Και αυτά τα 600 εκατομμύρια ευρώ δεν πήγαν για καμία παραγωγική επένδυση. Πήγαν στον αέρα και στις τσέπες των εταιριών και των χωρών που μας τροφοδοτούν με φυσικό αέριο. Μετά από αυτά που είπα, αναρωτιέμαι, ένα έργο όπως ο EastMed, που έχει αυτά που σας προείπα, λεπτομέρειες δεν έχει νόημα, τα ξέρουμε οι περισσότεροι, για το 1/100 του κόστους που δαπάνησε η Ευρώπη σε ένα χρόνο μέσα σε μια ενεργειακή κρίση. Έχει νόημα να συζητάμε αν είναι bankable ένα πρόγραμμα που θα δουλέψει για 50 χρόνια, θα μεταφέρει 20 BCM, περίπου το 20%, 18 με 20% του ρώσικου φυσικού αέριου πριν την εισβολή στην Ουκρανία.
Βλέπετε όμως διέξοδο λοιπόν σε αυτό. Βλέπετε διέξοδο και το λέω γιατί υπάρχει και ο παράγοντας Τουρκία που παραπονιέται ότι μένει απ' έξω από όλα αυτά τα ενεργειακά projects και διεκδικεί συμμετοχή.
Να ξεκαθαρίσω με την Τουρκία. Με την Τουρκία όλες οι χώρες που συμμετέχουμε στο EastMed Gas Forum έχει δίκιο ο κύριος Πρέσβης που είπε ότι ο EastMed δεν είναι μόνο ένα project, είναι και ένα concept. Είναι μία προσέγγιση σταθερότητας, ειρήνης, συνεργασίας στην Ανατολική Μεσόγειο. Το EastMed Gas Forum με την έδρα του που έχει στην Αίγυπτο, όπου μέσα συμμετέχει Ισραήλ, Κύπρος, Ελλάδα, Παλαιστινιακή Αρχή, Ιταλία, Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες κλπ. Έχει πει ένα πράγμα για την Τουρκία. Η συνεργασία είναι ανοιχτή, είναι inclusive. Είναι ανοιχτή σε οποιονδήποτε θέλει να μπει σε αυτή τη συνεργασία υπό έναν όρο. Να αποδεχθεί τη συνθήκη των Ηνωμένων Εθνών για το δίκαιο της θάλασσας. Την UNCLOS. Διαφορετικά, καμία χώρα δεν μπορεί να αποδεχθεί ένα νέο μέλος το οποίο δεν αποδέχεται βασική συνθήκη λειτουργίας του Οργανισμού Ηνωμένων Εθνών. Άρα, ανοιχτές πόρτες υπό την απλή αυτονόητη προϋπόθεση ότι αποδεχόμαστε το διεθνές δίκαιο.
Λοιπόν, θα επανέλθουμε στο ζήτημα. Mr. Mathioulakis, coming to you now, because we know energy sources can generate stability and instability in a region. So we're discussing here some of the energy projects that are underway. In your opinion, is there alignment or conflict regarding the benefits they deliver to the countries involved?
I hit myself. Alignment or conflict. It's a big decision. Let me allow me to say something to establish the framework when we talk about these things and when we talk about projects that involve more than one country. Because I see very often that we have this discussion and we can keep going for hours trying to figure out why a project is going forward and why others are not. There are always economic issues, technical issues, and even other kind of challenges. These are, however, all secondary. When we need to understand whether there is conflict or alignment of interests, we need to establish the correct line of thought. And the correct line of thought is that countries, since we're talking about states, countries, they strive for what we call survival in the system. They try to do their best to coexist with everybody else around them. This struggle for survival generates their national security interests, and this is what generates their energy interests. So when we're talking about what energy projects will move forward when they involve more than one country, and very often we are very fast in calling them strategic, for an energy project to have strategic value, it needs to align with the country's national interests. Therefore, when we have alignment of national interests, we will have, or we might have, alignment of interest in the energy projects, and then we might see energy projects materializing. If we lose track of this basic principle, we will never be able to understand why some things are happening and why some things are not happening. And let me explain further, very briefly, about the EastMed gas pipeline, which is a big discussion in Greece. And very often we stand to whether it's technically feasible or economically feasible, and so on. The EastMed gas pipeline means different things when it comes to strategy, when it comes to national interest, to each of the countries involved. For Cyprus, it is a highly strategical project because it offers the country the ability to improve its position in the system through what we call self-help efforts through external balancing. So what Cyprus can do, it can create strong cooperation, even alliances, and this way feel stronger. However, this is not the case for Israel. And Mr. Ambassador, I'm sorry to say, I'm not speaking on behalf of Israel, but I'm saying it from the structural point. And this is not the case for Egypt. Why? Because for Israel, the priority is to keep enough gas to feel secure for the country to be running for years. Exports is something that they want to do, but it's not a priority. The same way for Egypt, that has a big potential of production, but also they have big needs. So their priority is not exports. Exports are welcomed, but it's not their priority. So, and for Greece, the EastMed pipeline really, besides the line from where it comes from, which is really important in terms of exclusive economic zone. It doesn't really have neither big financial benefits or any other. So you have four countries, and for Italy, I really cannot see anything. So you have 4 countries or 5 involved. You have 1 country for which the project, it's the same project. For 1 country, it's highly strategic. For the other 2 countries, they are lukewarm. So it's nice, but nothing that they really need to push forward. And for the other 2 countries, for Greece and Italy, even lower. And then we're wondering why the project is not moving forward. This is the reason. If we do this kind of analysis for every project, it will be much easier to understand why some things are happening and why are not happening. Now, for the European Union, I will briefly close this. In general terms, most of the projects in the Eastern Mediterranean, they align with the interests of the European Union. And to that matter, they also align with the interests of the United States, which is also a big player in the region. So yes, there is a big will for this. However, we have to understand that it differentiates according to what actor we're talking about.
Well, Ambassador Katz, based on what Mr. Mathioulakis said, so what about, I'm coming to Israel's priorities again. Is there alignment in terms of national interest and with which countries for the energy projects to go forward? And will there be a new era in Israeli-Turkish relations after Erdogan's re-election?
I'll start with project and with energy. We discussed it a little bit about the East Med. When we think about the future of energy, as I said, Israel will be a consumer of energy from imported resources. Despite the technological edge that we have in development and in creating new technologies that are extremely relevant for renewable, probably we will need in the future, even for electricity, to get resources from other countries. That's why we are thinking in corridors. So I'm going now to 2050, and we would like to see Israel connected with other regions and with other countries. And I say with other regions and other countries, it's not the same, because when we think, and that was mentioned in previous discussion here in the room, we produce it in the region, we produce in the same time, and we consume in the same time. So we need to develop storage capacity and technologies that are better than what we have today. And we have to better our own grids. But we need also to connect ourselves beyond the region, deep into Europe and deep into Asia. And with electricity and electricity...
To look after the Middle East as well.
Yes, so the interconnectors thinking that we have, and we are speaking about the Eurasia interconnector that is going to go from Greece, Crete, Cyprus to Israel. It will be connected to what we call the blue-green capacity in the future that we are developing with the Emirates and Jordan and other countries. So we have, and we have the ability and the thinking to connect maybe to the Euro-Africa capacity. And when you think about countries like Egypt or Saudi Arabia, they will be also a strong source in the future for electric or renewable, RES, because they have the conditions for that. Therefore, we think about collaboration in the region, and we think that this collaboration is helping us. When you speak, and you spoke correctly about the first priority of Israel, is to be energy independent. I think that is independent or at least secured, because it's not necessarily being independent. You import, you don't produce, we never produced ourselves enough. But we think about also the stability of the region. If Egypt will not have enough energy for its needs, Egypt will be unstable. And if Jordan will not have enough for its need, it will be unstable. And therefore, we think about the region and about the possibilities. The East Med is a strategic idea because we wanted to connect and build strong partnership between Israel, Greece, and Cyprus. And when you think about the project, the total amount that we can export today from the Eastern Mediterranean is about 30 BCM. The shortage of BCM in Europe is about 140 BCM. So we are not going to answer all the needs of Europe, but we can be part of the cocktail. And therefore, we increase today the capacity of production and diverting more into export, because we have also a strategic interest to build our relations with Europe and to maintain strong relations with Europe. And we are part of that, as part of this partnership, we are helping. What will be the future? The future probably belongs to a cocktail of RES, the one that we know today and the one that will be developed in the future. Hydrogen was mentioned here. And when people are thinking about East Med or even a shorter pipe, and we just concluded a visit of the Cypriot energy minister, Papanastayou, to Israel last week, things that were discussed there were also short pipes that will be able to connect the Israeli marine gas field to Cyprus, and from Cyprus that it will go to export as LNG. Another thing that was mentioned, and I refer here to Turkey.
And please conclude with that.
Yes, I will conclude with that. Refer to Turkey. We managed to sign an agreement with Lebanon, an enemy state. We didn't solve all our problems. By the way, Israel is not part of the Convention of the High Seas, yet we managed to find a suitable, lawful solution to the issue of maritime border between us and Lebanon, and I hope that that will be setting an example for all countries in the region.
As we have sharply 8 minutes, I would like to ask for a 3-minute answer from all of you. Ambassador Poriazov, I would like to ask you, what is the most important lesson learned in the aftermath of the Ukraine war in terms of it has reshaped the energy factor and has forced many European countries to cut off Russian imports? You did it in one day, you said. So what have we learned?
Because you speak about the war, the first lesson learned should be, I suppose, that countries should abide by international law, including also international law of the sea. The second lesson should be that a bigger country should not make an aggression against its neighbor. But in terms of energy, we learned that we cannot rely on one source. So what we are trying to do is cooperate with EU member states and also with the whole Union in order to have divergent sources of energy. I listened very carefully to what the professor said about the East Med pipeline. I don't have a special attitude to this project, of course. We would be interested if it is realized and comes to Greece. What I can say at this moment is after the war, it was shown to everybody in the world that you can buy gas everywhere on a spot market. The question is to have the necessary infrastructure to receive it. This is an LNG terminal, and then to have a transmission system. I should say that before the war in Ukraine, in the previous period, Bulgaria was this energy hub, which has, through our transmission system, which is the biggest in the region, we have transferred gas to Greece, to Turkey, to Serbia, to what is now North Macedonia. So we know this story. Now, you can buy natural gas everywhere, especially, for example, the Norwegian ambassador is here. They will take care of the big part of the union, I suppose, with their capacities. What we learned is that you must have partners in the framework of the European Union. You must have common policies, and these policies should provide for energy security for everybody. So that's why we are very appreciative of our cooperation with Greece for the last 1 year, when we managed, through the mechanisms of the European Union, and especially because of our cooperation with Greece, having this place of an energy hub from the Aegean Mediterranean Sea to cover up our capacity. Another lesson is that we have to work together, because I like the idea of Greece being an energy hub. But when you manage to build different LNG terminals, in order to be an energy hub, you should be able to transfer this energy to other places. For example, first in the European Union and then. So I would better like an idea of Greece and Bulgaria being the energy hub for this part of Europe, because we have the transmission system, we are a part of one single market, we have developed all our interconnectors, also as former minister mentioned about the electricity, we must have take into consideration the fact that Bulgaria is the biggest producer of electric energy. We are going to continue with our nuclear technologies, not Russian, American, French, and so on. So if we manage to complement each other, we can be the energy hub for this part of Europe. Thank you.
Κύριε Μανιάτη, έρχομαι σε εσάς. Πολύ σύντομα θα ήθελα, γιατί θα υπερβούμε λίγο το χρόνο μας. Και επικαλούμε και την ακαδημαϊκή αλλά και την πολιτική εμπειρία σας. Νομίζω ήσασταν προεδρεύων και του Ενεργειακού Συμβουλίου της Ευρώπης μία περίοδο, άρα ξέρετε και το παρασκήνιο, εκεί θέλω να καταλήξω. Πιστεύετε λοιπόν ότι η Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση έχει βγει σοφότερη από αυτή την ενεργειακή κρίση και θα μπορέσει στο μέλλον να διαχειριστεί καλύτερα μία ενδεχόμενη νέα πιθανή κρίση?
Η ερώτηση του 1 εκατομμυρίου. Φοβάμαι πως όχι, για να είμαι μονολακτικός. Παρά το γεγονός ότι οι κοινωνίες υπέφεραν πολύ, όχι μόνο η ελληνική, όλες οι ευρωπαϊκές κοινωνίες υπέφεραν, ο επιχειρηματικός κόσμος, κυρίως η παραγωγή, οι ενεργοβόρες βιομηχανίες υπέφεραν ακόμη περισσότερο, διότι σας θυμίζω, στη διάρκεια της κρίσης, που το φυσικό αέριο ήταν στο Θεό, στα 350 δολάρια η μεγαβατόρα, ο Αμερικάνος ανταγωνιστής του Ευρωπαίου επιχειρηματία το αγόραζε στα 50 δολάρια τη μεγαβατόρα. Αυτό που βλέπω τώρα να εξελίσσεται. Καταρχήν, για να συνοηθούμε μεταξύ μας, όσοι ασχολούμαστε με το χώρο της ενέργειας, ξέρουμε ότι κάθε 5, 6, 7 χρόνια υπάρχει και μία κρίση. Άρα, ας προετοιμαστούμε και για την επόμενη. Δεν είναι ευχάριστο, αλλά δυστυχώς αυτό διδάσκει η ιστορία. Ποια θα είναι, δεν την ξέρουμε. Εδώ λοιπόν το μεγάλο ζήτημα της ενεργειακής ασφάλειας, που είναι και το θέμα του δικού μας πάνελ, είναι νομίζω κορυφαίο. Θέλω να ελπίζω, για να κλείσω σύντομα την απάντησή μου, ότι η Ευρώπη, όχι ψέματα, λάθος, οι μεγάλες ευρωπαϊκές οικονομίες, στις οποίες αντιδρούν και έχουν άλλη προσέγγιση, οι ευρωπαϊκές οικονομίες του Νότου, Ελλάδα, Πορτογαλία, Ισπανία, Γαλλία κλπ. Οι μεγάλες κεντρικές ευρωπαϊκές οικονομίες πρέπει να συνειδητοποιήσουν ότι το παιχνίδι είναι πολύ μεγάλο, ακόμη και για τα δικά τους μέτρα. Εάν δεν έχουμε ενιαία ευρωπαϊκή απάντηση, που είναι η μόνη λύση, προκειμένου να στηρίξουμε την ανταγωνιστικότητα των ευρωπαϊκών επιχειρήσεων και να πολεμήσουμε κατά της ενεργειακής φτώχειας, που θα χτυπήσει αλίπητα όλα τα νοικοκυριά της Ευρώπης, με αποτέλεσμα να έχουμε και περίεργα φαινόμενα ακροδεξιών ή ακραίων συμπεριφορών τα επόμενα χρόνια, εάν δεν το καταλάβουν αυτό, τότε φοβάμαι πάρα πολύ ότι δεν μάθαμε τίποτε από αυτήν την κρίση. Και θα είμαστε άξιοι της μοίρας μας. Εύχομαι, ελπίζω, το καινούργιο το Ευρωπαϊκό Κοινοβούλιο που θα εκλεγεί, η καινούργια Ευρωπαϊκή Επιτροπή που θα εκλεγεί, να συμβαδίσει με αυτά που επιτάσσουν οι ανάγκες της ιστορίας και της συγκυρίας.
Δεν μας καθησυχάσατε και πολύ, αλλά έρχομαι σε εσάς, κύριε Mathioulakis. So, Greece aims at becoming an energy hub for southeastern Europe. So does Israel, so does Bulgaria. So which country will make it happen, and can they all establish an important role in the region?
I guess the minute I would have a different answer for this, I would be a very rich man if I knew it. However, I think everybody can become and will become, and it's important to become an energy hub. But you will allow me, I know that there's not much time, I have still a lot to say, I'll just start speaking very fast. To what Ambassador Katz said earlier about the projects. Actually, the new discussion about the pipeline from Israel to Cyprus and then an LNG terminal fits perfectly to the strategic interest of Israel, and that's why my personal estimation is that this will go much faster than anything else we have seen in the region, because then you have two players both with high strategic interest. So this might be a thing happening. Now to the question of hubs. I think each of the countries, Egypt wants to become a hub, Greece wants to become a hub, Bulgaria wants to become a hub, Italy is a hub and wants to maintain that position. I think there is room for everybody. The importance of the East Mediterranean, both when it comes to natural gas and electricity interconnections, is high for the European Union. The natural market for the Eastern Mediterranean is primarily the European Union. The numbers are there. There is cooperation. The national interests, they align with the energy interests, so there is room for everybody to become a hub and cooperate with each other. And to finalize this concept, investments need stability. Investments need to know that there is room for everybody to work together. If you would have competition between hubs about who will be the one to become, nobody would come to invest. When we cooperate all together, there is room for everybody to create their own hub, transfer energy from point A to point B, and accelerate business for everybody.
I want to thank our esteemed speakers for this discussion, and thank you all for watching. There's a break for a light lunch, and then Nikos Rogakos, my colleague, will continue. Thank you all.